Welcome to my home office. This is Dr. Coonfield. I wanted to take a moment and try out this video presentation business and use this as an opportunity to think through some of the ideas that Umberto Eco talks about in his essay, How Culture Conditions Colors We See. In particular, I want to focus on some of his main arguments and I want to sort of think with them about how we use the idea of color in contemporary culture and political discourse. Let's have a look at this quote. Eco explains here that semiotics is the attempt to define the general conditions that permit a process of communication that uses signs or sign systems to occur. He explains that the most elementary requirement of such a system is the existence of a common code. Let me unpack that just a little bit. So what he's saying is that in order for a process of communication to work, you have to have some kind of shared understanding about what particular signs, whether they're sounds or marks on a page, stand for what particular objects. Take Morse code, for example. It uses a combination of long and short sounds like these to send messages. But you can't just transmit whatever sounds you want and expect the person on the other end of the line to have any idea what you're trying to say to them. You have to understand the code. Both the person on the sending end and the person on the receiving end have to have the same understanding. Otherwise, communication doesn't happen. So let me connect this idea of the code back to Eco's arguments about perception and culture. A code establishes a relationship between a particular system of contents and a particular system of expressions. So the system of contents is the particular and distinctive manner in which a group divides up and organizes the world. This is what Eco means when he says we don't communicate about the world, but only with someone about particular states of the world. American philosopher John Dewey offers another way to understand the point Eco's making here. Now, Dewey distinguishes between sensation on one hand and perception on the other. We sense things, phenomena, but we perceive objects. The whole system of objects, the cultural units we have available to us for dividing up and organizing the world, are the contents of communication. If I say, it's sunny and hot here in Philadelphia, I'm expressing something meaningful about a particular state of the world to you. The system of signs we use to express ourselves meaningfully is what Eco calls the form of expression. Think about an example. Any conscious human person can sense the sun. Whether you can see it or not, no matter what language you speak or what stage of development you're at, if you are not in a coma or asleep and you are outside on a summer day, you will sense the sun. Or rather, you will sense a thing, because once you name that sensation, you have shifted to the right of Eco's diagram. Beyond the crisis point, you have begun perceiving an object and are now capable of expressing that perception. And you may write it as sol, you may write it as sunse, or you may write it like whatever this is, or in English as sun. The point is, these do not refer to a common sensation, but to different perceptions of culturally specific objects. They refer at all because of the existence of a shared underlying code or a system of communication. So this is what makes colorblindness kind of interesting, because you can get along just fine without being able to distinguish red from green. In fact, you can even get a driver's license. All of this talk about color kind of puts me in mind of the way we talk about race. According to every credible scientific discipline, there is no such thing as a white race or a black race. In fact, there is more genetic variation within these categories than there is between them. And if what Eco says about color applies here, what we are dealing with is not a sensation produced by a thing in the world, but a system of cultural units that people perceive, and a system of signification that permits us to communicate about those cultural units. All of this puts me in mind of the way we talk about color blindness in this context. I don't see race, I just see a person. Now, that's a noble sentiment in some ways, because It's a recognition that race reflects the way people are treated, and it impacts their lives. It expresses a desire to resist these cultural scripts that reduce people to stereotypes. However, it fails to appreciate how profoundly perception is structured by culture, and it dismisses the ways in which perception and meaning are linked to public institutions like law enforcement, mortgage lending practices, healthcare, real estate markets. So where does this get us, all this thinking about culture and perception? How does it help us understand something important about race and colorblindness? Well, I want to end with maybe a couple of points. First, it's impossible to be an American, that is, to be fluent in the system of social communication that Americans share, that comprises American culture, and not perceive race. Now, that does not make it natural, and it certainly doesn't make it okay. I think a second point then might be that history and culture are not optional. You can't choose them or choose to toss them out, just like we would change the color of a shirt. In fact, you can't not see race any more than you can just stop seeing the color blue. I think that ought to give us all a little pause and make us a little more humble when we judge the way people act and think around us, especially on social media and in the news. But now, I want to know what you think. How do you think Eco's arguments about the way culture conditions perception might change the way we think and talk about race and racism in America? I think these are important questions on this Independence Day. Look forward to hearing from you.